Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Game for All show. This is episode 88. I am Jordan. If you don't know me, you might not know me because you might be seeing me on a new channel this week, but we'll get to why that is in a minute. Down below today, we have Mr. Eat Sleep Game Luke. How are you, Luke?
Sleepy, tired, but I want to play games.
Fair enough. And to my left, we have a bit of a racing driver, our master of audio and video, Sean. How are you, Sean?
Very good, thank you, Jordan. How are you doing?
Yes, I'm good. I think we've got an interesting episode this week because we got a bit of a channel update. We've got a GT7 review, and then I'm sure we have some other games to talk about as well. So without further ado, I guess let's talk about what the channel update is, because you may have seen that our Twitter handle is now at G4A Network, and you may be wondering why the name change. What's going on? So, Luke, why don't you explain to people, because it affects you in some ways. Why don't you explain to people what's going on?
I mean, it doesn't have too much effect on me. Nothing's really changing for me. Essentially, we're just kind of migrating things a little bit. So this podcast will keep going exactly as it is. Nothing's going to change other than where it's being posted. So from next week, I believe, or from the next episode, depending, if there's one in between or whatever happens, who knows? Someone might buy someone or something. The podcast will be going over onto my channel, over onto Eat Sleep Game, just to keep things all neat and tidy and all bundled together.
Yes, sort of thing. So, and it's just to be clear, it will still remain where it is in audio format. You will still find it in the same places. But it's moving over to the Eat Sleep Game channel because Game for All is becoming the G4A network, and what that means is we're going to have a bit of a community of channels, if you like, and a community of creators. And we're kind of trying to work towards what Game for All was originally meant to be, which is kind of a network and working towards, positivity in entertainment. So I guess you could say Eat Sleep Game is becoming the gaming arm of Game for All. And the Game for All network is kind of going to encompass a few other things as well. We've got some official partners already, but we won't announce those yet. You may have seen some of those people, and it will mean you see some of those official partners kind of pop up on the podcast a lot more. But it also means you may get different content on our network. So, for example, the Game for All channel on YouTube isn't going away. I'm actually planning to use that for live streams, but also anything that we do that is kind of an overall network thing that is outside of gaming. So we may do like different charity things that I'm planning to do. For example, a video game quiz, which I've wanted to do for a while now. That will probably have a video of some form that goes onto the Game for All channel. And then you may see some other channels pop up that are kind of part of this overall network. For example, one day me and Luke might go back to talking about wrestling, and you may get...
I mean, we never stop talking about wrestling. We might just let you in on the conversation.
That's true. So you may get a wrestling channel as part of the network. Who knows? One of these days, me and Sean might do some movie reviews and put those out there somewhere. So I think it's just about kind of having stuff in the right place, but also allowing us to do things outside of gaming when we feel like it. Like at the end of the day, for example, I watched Batman the other week, and I thought to myself, I really want to talk about Batman, but this isn't the podcast to do that, right? So now with the
I nearly did the same thing. I nearly started doing stuff on like my personal, so I wanted to do like random shit.
Yeah.
Didn't.
So now with the G4A network, it just enables us to kind of spread out a little bit and do different things, and I think some interesting stuff will come of it. I've already spoken to Luke about maybe doing some kind of individual review videos over on Eat Sleep Game for games that maybe Luke
Yep.
isn't reviewing, and we'll figure that
Yeah, yeah.
out. So it's
and I'm kind of vice versa as well. If I'm doing a review for a game, you might not see me on like the review discussion
yes,
sort
yeah,
of thing, because it would be a bit redundant, me just repeating myself sort of thing.
yeah. And also part of this is Sean's a very busy man and he's not going to be able to be here every week. So we needed to get some guests. We needed to kind of have a little bit more of an official connection with some channels so that it's easier to organize things. And I think you'll be pleased with some of the people that are going to pop up and kind of be part of the show more often. Yeah. So, look forward to that in the future. We're going to have a new logo at some point whenever Sean decides to work on that.
I'm not my name
It's
changer.
all up here.
But now let's switch gears. Sean, it's your time, Sean.
One
Go on,
second. I think my
Luke.
dog wants something, so I'll be back in a minute.
Okay.
Enjoy.
Sean, you are now in the driver's seat because we are going to review GT7. You've played about 20 hours of it, I believe. I've played about 10 or 11 hours. So give it to me, Sean. What do you think of GT7?
I think it's an excellent game. The old Gran Turismo's back. It very much is wearing its old stripes again, racing stripes, one might say. I've had a great time with it. I really did blaze through it because it's got an addictive quality and something that
You're a tad quiet, Sean, just to let you know.
I'm a tad quiet. How do I fix that? I don't know how I'd fix that. Give me 2 seconds.
Good.
Open
I just want to make
sound.
sure that people can hear your thoughts of GT7.
Is that any better?
That is better, yes.
Okay. All right. Let's start that again. Yeah, Gran Turismo 7, excellent. It's wearing its old stripes again. And I'm really pleased that they managed to put out a full product, because we had that debacle with GT Sport, we had GT Prologue, it's been a bit up and down.
GT's had a weird history, right?
Sure.
I don't know about you, but the last one that I really played, like actually sunk major time into, was GT4. And I've tried some of the GTs since then. GT Sport felt very much like a half-baked product, where they had a direction and they knew what they were trying to do, but they maybe just didn't execute on it all the way.
Sure.
And then, yeah, like you said, they've had the weird prologues and stuff like that. At least this one was just a full product right out of the gate, right?
Exactly. And I think every sports franchise in gaming is having this dilemma of balancing the game as a service, which is kind of what the players want. They want frequent updates. They want new additions. If it's a sport, if it's a football game, they want roster updates frequently. And if it's a driving game, you want new cars, new tracks, and so on. And I think we're seeing all sorts of different racing games and franchises tackle this differently. We've seen Forza now go down the route of the season pass to keep people really engaged. It doesn't look like Gran Turismo is going down that road, but it does feel like that game is going to get supported. I get that impression, at least. It's not obvious from the current sort of setup of the game where that will fit in, but you have to assume that new tracks and new cars are coming. But yeah, the game overall, gorgeous. It's a great looking game. I really can't fault it. I think they do. And not only is it good looking, they really take time. Like, everything is thoughtfully and tastefully done. It feels like a game of luxury. When you buy a new car, it feels special. They're not, unlike the Forza series, which I actually think is, to its credit, throws cars at you. Even the Forza Motorsport games, they would throw you into a supercar within half an hour of playing that game. They want you to feel.
Do you know the way I was thinking about it the other day? And I don't think either of these approaches are bad. I think GT is a game that is for the car lover, and it's kind of less about being a game. I know that might sound a bit weird, but what I mean is Forza, in comparison, is a game first, And I think that's the major difference, is like the way GT is presented is we want this to feel like when you buy a brand new car. You know, when you get a car in this game, we're presenting it in a way because we love cars and we want you to be someone that loves cars as well. We want to give you information about the car and all this stuff. And I think for certain people, that is going to be amazing. Like the amount of care and attention that has been put into these vehicles and how they're presented in the game, just from like when you you know, for example, you've got the menus in the game at the cafe, which are like different challenges you have to go through to unlock different cars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And every time you complete a menu, you go back to the cafe and there's like this little presentation of these 3 cars that you've unlocked. And it's really cool. Like it is cool. It feels unique. At the same time, though, that's not going to speak to everyone. Do you know what I mean? It's not. It's for car lovers first, and people who just want a fun racing game second. That's kind of how I would put it.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I think there is not an abundance of fun, traditional gaming fun. I think to Forza and the bright colors and the like roulette wheels, not roulettes, is it slot machines?
Yeah,
and there's all sorts of
the present. Like this is why obviously we'll speak about Forza Motorsport in future because they are coming down the road somewhere.
Sure.
But it's going to be interesting to see what their presentation is like for a simulation racer because we haven't had one from them for so long.
Sure.
The presentation in GT, it was kind of one of my issues with the game. Not so much the actual presentation of the cars and how they're presented to you and stuff like that, but the lack of kind of vibrancy, right? Of like, let's have these plain menus that feel like I'm on an old computer, kind of surfing through different things. And I don't know, it's weird. It felt like a PC game. Do you know?
I definitely get that. I mean, they gave you a cursor for one, which is hit or miss with a lot of console gamers.
Mm-hmm.
I do wonder if that's because that's the end goal, is that they are going to put it on PC fairly soon, because PC is where the biggest like hardcore driving sims
and
are
PlayStation games, of course, are starting to get more successful on PC. Like each release that they do on PC seems to be more successful than the last one.
This is the first like sim they've done in
a long time,
maybe since the last one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and like it will crush on PC.
Yeah,
but what I would say as well, and I think those are all valid points. I think they probably had PC in mind from very early on in development, and I'm sure it will be coming soon. But I also think there's an element of the fancy UIs that we get in games sometimes, and I think of things like Destiny, and they're very interactive and visually appealing, and there's lots going on. Once you put in 100+ hours into a game, you kind of want it to be quick and efficient. You just want to get to where you're going really quickly, and the bells and whistles stop impressing you. And you kind of like, how quickly can I find the exact car I want?
Yeah.
And get into a race quickly. And that, I think, and this isn't necessarily GT7 doing anything brilliant. It's just harnessing the latest gen.
Yeah.
But the loading
is quick, right? It's real quick.
It's revolutionary for the genre because of how much game time you can get in. If I think of how much I achieved in my 20 hours of game time, that would not have translated well to past generations.
That wouldn't have happened 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, and that's I think that's something they do actually have over Forza, because Horizon is just so cluttered when you open that pause menu. There's just so much. It's like an Xbox dashboard,
and that's why I say that when Forza comes with Motorsport again, it's actually going to be quite interesting to compare these two games and kind of the different approaches they've taken, because Motorsport and GT are the more simulation based racers of these franchises. So it's going to be interesting to see. I love GT in the sense of it feels great to be in the car. It feels great to be in that car and drive around that track. And on PS5, you've got some really cool DualSense features that actually feel like I'm in a car. You know, when I'm kind of veering off the track a little bit, I feel the difference in surface.
Yeah.
Like I physically can feel, and it feels how it would feel if I was sat in a car. You know, if I was in Luke's car and we went and drove on a bit of grass, it would feel like that. Do you know what I mean?
It's quite smart. I mean, you know, when you accelerate out of a corner on nicely rubbered in tarmac, it has this light resistance that just feels very satisfying. And if you do clip either the white strips around the track, which don't have as much grip, or if you do clip the grass, or even worse, you know, sand or gravel, you just the trigger slips, right? So it's as if your wheel hasn't caught onto the tarmac.
It's very clever.
It's amazing.
It's clever but subtle usage of the DualSense, I think.
Yeah.
And that, you know, that's good. That's a good thing. It sets it apart from other games in the genre, right? Because at the end of the day, Forza Motorsport might come out and be an amazing game, but it's not going to have that feel of the DualSense.
It's a bit of like an Uncharted to Tomb Raider thing, because, you know, I'm calling Forza Motorsport in this case the Uncharted, because they revolutionized that with the
triggers initially
on the Xbox One.
Yeah.
And that was amazing. I remember for the first time, I think it was Forza Motorsport 4, maybe 3.
Yeah.
That came at the launch of the Xbox One.
I can't remember which one it was, but I know
3.
what you mean. They had the rumble triggers, right?
Yeah. And now we've kind of had this, and Xbox won't necessarily be able to mimic this anytime soon. We all know that there's probably a next generation controller coming,
there very clearly is something in the line, because they keep putting it in surveys and stuff of, do you want it? So I think they're trying to gauge how much people actually want it, because I think PlayStation's really interesting with the controller, where some people genuinely hate it. Like, I know people that do not like the usage of the controller at all and have turned off the features, like in the main system settings menu. And then other people think it's revolutionary, you know? So it's really interesting where
I've definitely turned it to the
stuff.
mild setting on certain games, for sure. I do find it intrusive for certain games. So haven't had an issue with GT, and I really hammered that game, so had no issues with like over feedback or over vibration.
I agree. So something I want to know, Sean, because you played a lot more of GT than I did, was there any point where it started to feel like you were just doing the same thing, right? Like, was it, you know, because one of the things I said with you was, I think the AI is terrible in this game. Like, as far as other racing games go, I can point to many racing games that have better AI than this game. And I was getting to the point where I was winning races comfortably every single time on the hardest difficulty setting. And it made me not want to play the game anymore. So how was it for you? You know, did you get to the point where it didn't feel like a challenge, or did it become more difficult over time? What personally,
I know what you mean. I had it on the hardest difficulty the entire way through. I found eventually, once, you know, switching off traction control in the later game, when you're not driving, you know, road cars and you're driving supercars or hypercars or track cars, driving without traction control and without ABS, it was incredibly challenging. Like, I was restarting races. I was doing races 5 or 6 times over to.
I suppose there's a lot more room. Like, there's a lot more potential for error, right? When you're driving in at that speed.
Yeah. So I would say the first 5 or 6 hours, yes, some of the races are relatively straightforward, you know, and I wouldn't even say it's AI in this game. I don't even think they cooked in any AI. It very much feels it feels, and I'm being serious. I think they literally put, like, this car is going to do this time around the track.
Yeah,
right.
I know,
and
what
it's just
you mean.
An obstacle. It's not reacting to your driving. It is just a car going around a track, and it's going to finish at a time.
Mhm.
So it's kind of
almost
turning a time trial into a race by
Mhm.
putting cars there.
Yeah, and that's what I was just going to say. There was the part of me when I was playing it where I was like, I would actually prefer this game if they were just time trials. If
Yeah.
each of these races was just time trials and I wasn't racing against other cars, because they might as well not be there. Like I
Sure.
passed them on the first lap and then I never ever see them again. And they all drive in roughly the same exact pattern around the track. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just like, have some, don't get me wrong, AI has always been a problem in racing games. It's not always been great, but at least in other racing games, there's this feeling that different drivers drive different.
Honestly, I can only point to one company that does it well, and that is Codemasters.
Codemasters do it very well. Yeah,
they've been doing it since the
I was
first
going to
grid.
say Grid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the first grid had amazing AI, and it's had great
Yeah.
AI since. Granted, I haven't played every entry. Formula One has pretty good AI. It's frustrating in that because the slightest touch can ruin your entire race, so they can get a bit
Yes.
over aggressive. And then I also played Onrush, and that had really fun arcade AI.
Yeah, that's different kind of AI
they were
that you
very
want in an
aggressive and
arcade
fun,
game,
but
right? Mhm.
I would
So-
say in Forza it's better for sure, but it's kind of, I find the rubber banding in Forza a bit
I
annoying.
agree with that. I agree
Yeah,
with
but
that.
yeah, it's an issue, and it makes me think with the tech we have now and how focused PlayStation is on building an online sort of universe for all of their games, that it would have made more sense just to put in some drivatars. Obviously, they can't use that verbiage.
Yes,
so
but
that it
there's a
felt like you
way
were
to do
driving
it,
your
right?
friends around the track.
Mhm.
And even if you couldn't hit them and they were just a ghost.
Well, because that actually takes me to one of my favorite parts of this game, and that is you've obviously got the license challenges, right? Which are very well known, been in GT since the start. And it's like these challenges are difficult, but then when you see your friend's name on the leaderboard and you're like, oh, they beat me by 1 second, you go again because you're trying to beat them. And then you see like there's one challenge which was one of the earlier ones, because I was going back through my licenses, and you beat me in that challenge, Sean, by like 5 seconds, and it really annoyed me. I was like, and I kept trying to do it for ages, and I was just like, how the hell have you made up this 5 seconds?
I'm not even kidding. I had to look up into like forums because it's too early days for this game to have like guides on any website. So I had to go into like Reddit forums and PlayStation forums to see how people were doing certain times. Like I couldn't even get gold medal, like just the basic gold medal on some of the challenges. And it was quite smart, but the game doesn't tell you this. If you have certain assists on your card, like ABS or anti-counter steering, or counter steering, I should just say, it slows you down. Like it prevents you actually hitting a corner as aggressively as you could if you didn't have it on. Obviously, it's harder to drive.
Yes.
But if you can nail it, you'll go quicker. And this metagame, like those challenges and those licenses, there's so much game in there.
Yeah.
And that is definitely where most of my fun has come from, is just doing those challenges over and over and perfecting it. And you learn the tracks.
Agree with you. I did enjoy those. But there was 2 issues I had with them. And one is to do with the wider game as well. But when I initially started going through those challenges, I had to kind of think back, and I was like, is this not the exact same order of challenge and the exact same challenge they had 10 years ago? You know, and then I actually looked, and for the most part, it is. They've basically copy and pasted these challenges from one GT to the next. And don't get me wrong, that isn't an issue in the sense of, because the gameplay feels so different, it doesn't really matter. But I would have just liked to have seen a bit more variation in challenges and things like that. It felt like most of the challenges were cornering, you know.
Well, the thing is, like the license tests serve a purpose. They are teaching someone who knows nothing about cars or driving or racing about all 3 of those things, whether it's hitting apex on corners, managing throttle outside of a corner. And I get it. If you've done them 5 times before, you might not want to do them again. So the game could throw you a bone and say, do you want to skip this? There is no way to skip it. At certain points, there's a bottleneck where it's like you can't do this next race or this next menu
And you
card
have
unless
to
you have the
do, yeah.
license.
Mhm.
And you don't have to get gold on these licenses, and you can breeze through them in literally. You could probably do an entire license in 5 minutes if you just wanted to get the
Absolutely.
bronze
Yeah,
medal.
they don't take long, and that's the good thing is like it doesn't, at least as far as I'm aware, there's never a point where it says you have to get gold in order to pass this license.
No.
I think that's good. Another thing I hate, and I just hate about this game in general, is why in the world has it not got some sort of VO? Why is everything text? Like, just give me someone actually, like, for example, when I do one of these cafe menus and go back to the cafe, I shouldn't have to read a wall of text about something. Have the guy tell me about the car. Like, to me, that would be a lot more engaging.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds silly, but even if it was bad VO, I would actually prefer it.
I'm with you. I think the writing is actually quite thoughtful and quite nice. And just to, whenever you buy or unlock a car, you get, I would say about 100, 200 words about the history of that car, right? And it's lovely stuff. And it's interesting.
It is.
And just being able to press a button to play it while you're browsing the car, looking around and taking photos.
I would love that.
That would be great. I'm with you. I almost think it's inexcusable for a game of this budget not to have hired a couple of voice actors.
And it's like, even within the licenses, they've got the guys that are players of the game, players of GT, kind of taking you through.
Yeah.
Why the hell are they not talking?
Yeah.
Why are they not giving me the tips that they're actually saying in text?
Yeah, I'll give you that. I actually completely agree with that.
But when it comes down to it, I'm very conflicted on this game, because I think it gets it right where it matters most, which is the gameplay and the feel of driving the car around a track, right? And then it's just that thing of, it also feels like I've played this game 6 times before. And while that isn't terrible, I just kind of hoped for more in 2022. And I think part of that is that PlayStation have a history of kind of being able to reinvent things and make changes to make things feel fresh, right? Like, we're all playing Horizon Forbidden West, and it is more Horizon, but there are changes there that make it feel like a new game. This feels like GT again. And I don't know how you fix that with racing games in general, because I do think it's a wider kind of racing game problem as well. But that feeling of having played this 5 or 6 times before and having played this exact game 20 years ago was just something I couldn't escape until I was out on the track in a race controlling the car. And do you know what I mean? So where it really matters, they get it right, and they get it very right.
Yeah, GT's got an issue in that a lot of non-driving fans played GT on the PS1 and maybe PS2. I bet even Luke played a GT game at some point or another. And unlike other simulators, most people didn't grow up playing Farming Simulator or Flight Sim, right? So if you're a Flight Sim fan, all you want is the sim to be more simmy the next time around.
Yes.
And GT have nailed that. The game is more simmy than it was last time.
Absolutely.
It looks better and it plays better, and there's more options, there's more cars, more tracks. So, and the tracks are more dynamic, the weather is more dynamic. The way the weather interacts with the track and the car it's quite immense, to be honest.
Yeah, yes, it is.
If you are playing GT because you're a gamer and you're just a cat, like, oh, I used to play GT and I want to check out what this new one's like. You're going to be shocked because there's no game there. There's no fun. There's no gimmicks.
It's not a game first, right? It's a driving simulator first. It's a racing simulator first, which, to their credit, it always has been. But I think, as you brought up there, Sean, 20 years ago, with the PS1 and PS2, gamers were playing this game. Do you know what I mean? And now we've got to the point where the simulation aspect of games that go down that route is so good that they become less of a game because they're more of a simulation.
Yeah.
And as I could not recommend this to someone who just wants a fun racing game. I think there are better racing games out there for that. But as a simulation of racing, and in terms of a presentation of cars, if you're someone who loves cars and you love racing, where you're like, if you're watching F1 every week, if you know about all these different cars and stuff like that, you're going to really enjoy yourself with this one, I think.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I can see it being quite divisive, but overall, I would say that when it comes down to it, they nail the gameplay, and that's all that really matters for this kind of game.
Yeah.
What about you, Sean? What are your kind of overall final thoughts on GT7?
So I was actually thinking about that question. I don't even know if I answered it. If there was a point in the game where it stopped being so much fun, and I completely agree with you. I think the menu card stuff, it's something to do. It's their attempt to give you some driving force through the game. And I finished it. You roll the credits. It's all nice. But to be honest, the best time I've had is through the challenges and through the limited amount of multiplayer that I've played. So when you get in an online race and then you remember that these aren't the shitty AI that you've been racing against, but there are 20 others, and this isn't like picking up Forza, where, no offense to Forza Horizon, but when you go and play online, because it's on Game Pass at launch, it was just a mix. It was just people who wanted to watch the world burn, who just were just driving in circles and trying to wreck you. There were people that were so good at Forza and they were miles ahead. And in this, it's kind of like,
everyone's there for the same reason, right?
yeah, and everyone was taking it seriously. And I had some great on-track, like I was recording clips of battles I was having with other drivers, and it's good. And there's zero latency, at least for the races I had. I didn't have any latency issues. I like the setup. So what they do is they present you with a couple of races that you can pick from, usually different like car scaling, right? So a car that's worth 250 car points, whatever it is that they measure cars on. And then you go through your library of cars, you pick one that might work, and it's like, oh, the race is about to start in 10 minutes or something. And okay, you figure out your car, you see the track. It's like, okay, you can do some warm-up laps while the race is just ticking down, and it's like, okay, I'm not properly set up. I'll change my tires. Oh, the weather, it looks like it's raining. Okay, I got to make sure I get some intermediate tires. And then you can do a qualifying lap to place yourself in the grid for the race. And that's really exciting because, you're getting, there's like 5 minutes to the race. It's like, oh, I can squeeze in 3 laps, and you're seeing everyone else's laps, tumble down, and you're like, oh shit, I'm in for it on this one. These guys know what they're doing, or vice versa. And you're at the, you're near the top, and it's like, oh, I might have a shot in this race. And then it starts, and this isn't Forza. There's no rewind button. There is no way to undo a mistake. So you take it seriously. You're a little bit cautious, and you start to warm into it. The races are long enough where you can sort of grow into them. You can see other people making mistakes, and then you're picking off places here and there, and it's really exciting. And that's definitely where I'm going to.
And do you know what that makes me think? That goes back to what we were saying just now about how, I don't want to say this isn't a game, because at the end of the day, even a simulation-based game is still a game. It's just a game for a very specific audience and they want a very specific thing out of it. And as you were describing that online play there, and kind of, changing tires and watching the weather and stuff like that, there are a lot of gamers who will appreciate that. And, again, I go back to F1. I think if you're a fan of F1, you probably would really like this game. If you're someone, again, though, who just wants to jump in online and kind of have a fun race with your friends, is that something that's even possible? Or
yeah, it's a good question. It's first of all, it's a lot of money to spend on a game if you're just looking for a bit of arcadey fun. Yes, there are assists there to make sure that you never fall off the track and you never spin out, and you never sustain any damage to your vehicle. Those options are there. So if you do want a really cushioned experience, I don't know how much you'd get out of it at that point. But then I know that those modes exist on Formula One, for example, as well. So
yes.
So there, those people exist, and maybe it's the kind of game where you want to start there, and then you slowly start peeling away as you get more accomplished. And I find myself in the middle. I'm not here with my home racing setup. I don't have a racing wheel and pedals. I'm using a controller.
But you are a racing guy, right?
I am a racing guy. I couldn't be more excited for the Formula One season that's coming to us ahead in a week or so. And, racing on tracks like Catalonia and it takes you to Spa in Belgium, and the Hungaroring was it the Hungaroring? There's a lot of Formula One tracks.
But you know what? That actually brings me to a good comparison that I wanted to make more earlier in terms of how games evolve over time. If we look at the F1 games, because ultimately they are a simulation of F1, right? But they're making a game out of it.
Yeah.
And if we look at how they've evolved over time, because they've been around a long time now, but they've tried things like co-op seasons online. You've now got they did like a story mode last time, and while it isn't amazing, they still did it, right? They still tried to add some content.
I'm torn on that one because, as I think we spoke about it last year, but I did not love what they did with the story stuff. I thought it was gamey, right? But they're trying, so I'll give you that.
But I guess what my point is, that's all that I really hoped for out of GT was I still want the GT game and I want exactly what it is, but I want more than that. I'd like to see them, for example, why is there not an option for a co-op career as example? Why can me and you not play this game together? And something like that. To me, that would have been enough change for me to at least say, okay, they're actually trying to head in different directions while also maintaining what the game is. I think ultimately they played it a little safe here, but in doing that, kind of like Forza Horizon did, they absolutely nailed it to the best that they could, right? And it's one of those things where you may come into this game and you may feel like you've played it 5 times before, but it is still the best version of this game that has ever existed. Like that's important to say. So yeah, I would consider it a great game, even with kind of all my little nagging issues with it. I would still say it was a great game for sure.
I for the most part I agree with that. And I hope that content is added regularly and that it's free, because it's an expensive game.
Yes, it is.
And
the microtransactions make it that much more expensive.
There are microtransactions. I haven't ever been encouraged, I don't think, through my entire
Apparently
time of playing
there's ones that are like £40 upwards.
So what I'll say is there's a Legends garage where you can buy like a rolling set of cars that they change every now and then. And they're very expensive. And to earn that, through playing 20 hours, I was able to buy one of them. And so I can imagine that maybe getting frustrating. But if you're buying GT and wanting to get everything out of it in 20, 30 hours, then you're in the wrong place anyway. It doesn't excuse bad microtransactions, but throughout my entire time playing it, I couldn't even tell you where you could go to buy them.
Yeah, it's not pushing you towards it, right? Like it's there for the people that want to do that, but it's definitely not pushing you towards it.
It also sounds like it was added in after reviews as well.
It was, yes, it was. So from my understanding, the reviewers were aware that it was going to be there, but they didn't know what the prices would be. So it was added in later, but reviewers were aware that it was going to have transactions.
It's still misleading somewhat because they can't report on it and warn people and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
But I don't think the game needs it. Just I'd almost rather they just say it's a grindy game. If you want all the cars, you're gonna have to spend some time.
Yeah,
because it's effectively very similar to the speedy level up that you can get in like Assassin's Creed.
Yeah,
it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of like if you want to get to the end game much quicker, then
it's just helping you to get through the game quicker. But I think the issue with it more is I'm with Luke, the extortionate prices of some of these things. Like I think there was one report that a car in GT Sport that costs something like £4 in GT Sport,
it's like
now costs like 20 quid.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the same car. Why am I paying 5 times the amount of money for it,
Sure.
So there's that. But anyway, let's move on, because we have also been playing other things. To get Horizon out the way, because we don't want to talk about it too much here, we've all been playing Horizon. We will still be doing a review of it. But basically, something weird happened where we were meant to have a guest on this week, and then the Horizon review was going to be next week. But that's probably pushed a further week back now, because our guest should be on the show next week. So it is still coming, but it will be a couple of weeks from now before you hear it. At least we will probably record it in advance. Other than that, Luke, I'm going to start with you. What have you been playing other than Horizon Forbidden West?
So I'm a bit shit, basically. I said I was going to wait and not buy WWE yet. I was like, nah, I'm not really feeling it. And then an hour later, I was playing it. So I'm playing the new WWE game, and it's surprisingly good.
I'll talk more about that in a minute. I was just going to say, yeah, what are your kind of initial impressions?
I'm not overly keen on the presentation of the menus and stuff like that, but it's whatever. It's not really that big of a deal. I like the GM mode, but I think it's a bit bare bones.
Yeah,
I
I'd agree with
do
that.
like one-on-one and tag team matches. Like, you can't really.
And there are different stipulations you can add to those matches,
sure,
but
like,
you are limited, right? You are limited.
And you get like 2 champions and 3 matches. Like, it's odd,
and
but it's fun.
And so yeah, I've been playing it as well, and I'm with you. I think the most immediate thing to say, though, is this game visually is the best that a wrestling game has ever looked. Like, I don't think there's a wrestling game that has looked anything close to this. And if you compare this game to any of the previous 2K releases, it just is night and day difference. Like some of these screenshot comparisons, it actually feels like a next gen game, even though it's a cross gen game still.
Yeah, it kind of feels. Was it 2016? That was the last really good one. It feels like that, and that's 6-7 years old.
Yeah. So I'm with you on the GM mode, because I played a couple of hours of it. I think it's a very good start, and I think they clearly know what GM mode needs to be, and they have some cool ideas in there. But your options are too limited to really get some amazing play out of it.
Yeah, and it does sound like there is going to be a lot of stuff added to it. So I wonder if they just deepen that in a couple of months' time or something.
For sure.
Maybe.
So there's that. There's also one of my other kind of issues with it, but I'm half kind of. I think there's 2 solutions. Is in the My Rise, which is the career mode, I really like that they've got.
Oh, that's what that is. They got really stupid fucking names for everything.
So My Rise is the career mode, and that is where you create your own wrestler, male or female. They have 2 completely different storylines, which are branching, and you make choices. You choose whether you're a good guy or a bad guy. There's lots of interesting choices and replayability there. But my God, the performances are awful. And some of the audio capture you can tell is done in a COVID work from home situation. At that point, it's actually one of those cases where this game would have been better with just text. Like, get rid of the VO, if you can't do it. Like, this game was mostly developed in a work from home situation. If you are not able to capture audio in your traditional way of doing it, why not just tackle that a different way? Why not?
Yeah, and it's kind of the same thing all the other sports games get, where you get like a basketball player trying to act.
Yeah. And it's weird, because it's like it doesn't have the personality of WWE TV, right? And that says something for
Oh,
people.
it never does when they do that sort of thing.
Yeah,
It never works like that because they're just always so awkward and
Absolutely.
robotic
This
and-
is a wild thought, and obviously
Mhm.
I'm not a seasoned pro of wrestling games, but why don't they just do like actual video, right? So like, like Quantum Break
actual yeah, I know what you mean.
FOV, right?
I've never even thought about that. That's interesting to think of. Yeah,
Because
no,
I
don't
can
know.
imagine like the WWE gaming license, I'm sure is worth a bomb, right? I'm
Mhm.
sure WWE probably makes as much money through video games as they do through the television show.
I mean, they make a lot, and I think that's why there has been a report recently that they're potentially in talks with EA if this 2K game doesn't do too well.
Right. So I just
yeah.
wonder, like, can you not integrate them a lot more heavily and
I
work
don't
it
see
into
why
these
not,
wrestlers'
to be
contracts
honest.
that they have
And
to?
what I will say is, this is the thing. I think this with this game, I'm gonna somewhat give them the benefit of the doubt because it was made in a work from home situation. You're not going to be able to capture audio the same way, etc. But wrestling games have managed to capture performances way better in the past. Still not great, but way better than this. And I think it might be a 2K issue because if you play something like NBA 2K, they have the same issue in those games. I think they just don't really know how to do it. I don't know how else to put
And
it.
like to Sean's point, if they did do the FMV kind of thing, wrestlers are far better suited to doing that than basketball players are.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Like
absolutely.
talking is half of their job.
Absolutely.
Yeah, some of them are shit at it, but
where
you
I
know.
do want to give My Rise a lot of credit though, because I think they've taken a great direction with it, where the previous career mode for the last few years now has been a lot more linear and kind of it's this kind of over the top written story that there's no player choice to it really, right? With this one, it's gone back to the old style of kind of WWE career mode where you're making choices, you're basically choosing who you're engaging in stories with. And you've just got a lot more control over who you are as a character. And there are some really interesting stories in there that come out of it. But the way in which they're captured make them not hit quite as much. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that kind of that whole thing kind of sums up the whole game. There are some bits where it's like, oh, cool, they've taken it in a new direction. Like the universe mode, for instance, you can play as a single wrestler now instead of like doing, playing as everybody and having these weird fucking matches.
Yeah.
But then equally, the creative side of stuff is pretty much exactly the same. Has not changed. Still kind of shit. Even though like what you could do with what you have is good. The assets they give you have to still the same old shit.
Yeah, you have to be very good at it to do some of the things
or
you
import
can do.
shit.
Right?
Like, I can't be fucked for sure.
I will say I like that so there's no crossplay, but there is cross community creations, which is basically, for those that don't know, you can create your own wrestlers and you can download them, and you can now download them from any platform regardless of what platform
it used
you're
to be
on.
Such a pain in the ass because I'm on a Reddit for WWE games, and there's so many cool, like they've made this wrestler and that is like,
and then in the past you couldn't get them, right?
yeah. Like,
whereas now you can. So if I make a wrestler on PlayStation 5, Luke can go and download it on his PC, that's really cool, because that community created stuff is what adds life to these games. They still need to bring back create a story. People have been calling for that for years, where you would actually have creators that would go in and write their own stories and make their own storylines, and then you could download them and play through them. That was really cool stuff as well.
But sorry, before you guys move on, the My Rise stuff, where does this sit in the realm of cinematic sports games? Like, Did you both play the Hunter trilogy on FIFA?
I played the first one. I thought, shit.
It's not like that.
Okay.
So that is what I would like this to be in terms of how they present the cinematics, right? Because I actually think EA did a half decent job.
Yeah, I would say half decent is the way to put it.
Yeah. This is very much in engine, you know, the wrestlers look how they look, which is great, but then because you've created your wrestler, in comparison, your wrestler just never looks as good unless you're a very, very good creator. And there are some people out there that are, you know, excellent.
But
at
even
this
then,
stuff.
it's very clear what's created and what isn't.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not really that. And the way I would fix that is what I would like them to bring back is what they used to do in the past, not in the 2K games, but in wrestling games, where you could play through the career as an existing superstar. So you could choose a superstar that was on the roster and just play through the same career. To me, that would be interesting because it's like, okay, I don't have to create a guy. It's a little bit better looking because you've made the, because 2K have made the person.
I honestly prefer the what's it called? They've just done it with Rey Mysterio. I forgot.
The showcase.
I prefer the showcase shit.
Yeah, so I was going to go on to showcase.
That's far more interesting. Actually, playing through the history of Daniel Bryan was my favorite one so far. Daniel Bryan's one was sick.
Yeah.
Or like the women's last time and stuff like that. Like that was really cool.
Have you touched the Rey Mysterio showcase yet, Luke?
I've literally done some random matches where I was Walter and beat the shit out of a bunch of people because it's fantastic.
Okay, so
and I did some career modes.
So showcase mode for people that don't know is you essentially play through the history of a certain wrestler, and they give you a selection of matches, usually about 8 to 10 matches. And you get objectives that you're going through in the matches to kind of recreate certain situations. But something they do that's really cool here, and it kind of blew my mind when I first saw it, is it will say something like, get this wrestler into the corner, and you do it, and then it goes into a cutscene, which actually then transitions into real footage of that match that happened in real life, and then goes back to gameplay later, and it's seamless, like it's literally in a split second, and
it's like a gaming documentary. It's like a documentary you can play, sort of thing. It's really cool idea.
It is a really cool way of presenting the legacy of these superstars.
My only issue with it is I don't really like Rey Mysterio enough to really care.
Interesting.
I've never been a big fan of this.
Obviously, one of the issues is as well, because they're dealing with historic stuff, they sometimes have to miss out really big matches because they can't get certain wrestlers in the game or things like that. So, for example, for Rey Mysterio, there was a match at WrestleMania where he beat a wrestler called Kurt Angle and another wrestler, Randy Orton, who is in the game, for the World Heavyweight Championship. But that match isn't in the game because they can't get Kurt Angle in the game. So it's like,
which is weird. Like, I would have thought,
and yet that's one of the biggest matches in his entire career, and they can't have it because of that. Obviously, that happens, but it's really interesting to kind of hear Ray talk about some of these matches. And as Luke says, like, it is presented like a documentary. And they actually do something quite cool this year as well, which they haven't done in previous ones, where in gameplay, when it does transition to these real life footage things, Ray is actually doing commentary over the top of it. And he's kind of telling you how he felt during the match and what he was thinking at certain moments. That's really cool. Like, the way they present that stuff is cool. And then there's the thing of there is actually a reason to play it, because there are certain wrestlers you can only unlock in the game by playing through the showcase mode. And the way you unlock them is achieving the objectives in each match. So it's, it's giving you a reason to play the mode. And I think that's something they do really well in this game, is there's a lot of content and you can choose whatever you want out of it. You know, the My Rise thing, there are those two different stories. Each one of those is apparently about 25 hours long. So you're talking about 50 hours of story content. Then you've got the showcase mode, which is about 4 to 5 hours. And then you've got universe mode, which is essentially God mode, where you can just make your own shows, import your created wrestlers, and basically do whatever you want in a kind of infinite calendar that never ends. And then there's a GM mode, which, you know, is more like running the show, running the finances, kind of figuring out what you want to do there. All of it's really, really interesting. Some of the execution is a little bit off. Like we mentioned, you know, GM mode being a little bit bare bones, or some of the production values in the My Rise situation. But then there's that thing of the gameplay feels fresh.
I was waiting for this because the gameplay is infinitely better.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so much quicker
and it flows so well.
Yeah, it's great. And like the animations are so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't just like counter something and he just awkwardly like, oh, he's over here all of a sudden. Like they actually
is
flow
contextual, right?
Yeah. And like if you get into like a kind of good flow, you can be fucking relentless and just beat the shit out of a guy constantly sort of thing.
But also it feels
so good.
But because of that, and because of the improved presentation in terms of when you're actually in a match. So like, for example, some of the entrances of these superstars at certain times, because they're using the camera angles as you would have them on TV, and the camera's actually doing a little bit of a swaying movement as though someone's actually carrying that camera and things like that. Some of these shots with the new lighting genuinely look very close to real. Like it's a
there
little
were some
bit,
screenshots that just look insane.
It's a little bit scary. Like I don't know how they've done it, but the presentation in game in a match is excellent, and it feels like, because of that, what you watch on TV.
So I for context, I'll explain what I'm talking about first to Sean. But while they were in the pandemic, they obviously couldn't have fans in, right? So they had like 1,000, we'll say iPads,
computer
like
boards.
iPads. They were just screens, and like you can actually
they were basically streaming people off of Zoom as a crowd.
Legit, yeah.
And they've done that in this game, so you can have real
bizarre.
And it's real people, so you can replace the virtual crowd with a virtual crowd of real people on these computer boards.
There's a wrestling journalist in there who used to work for Wrestle Talk in there. It's weird. And like I was just randomizing, playing just whoever the fuck, just to get a feel for the gameplay. And like it put me in like that one of those arenas, and it's so weird when you're playing as two very animated people,
because it's too real, right?
Real people. It's fucking bizarre. It fucked me up for a minute. Also, this is weird.
I can't even imagine that. You guys are gonna have to send me like
we will. Yeah, we'll send some screens for sure.
But they literally,
it's really interesting.
It is literally just people's. It's like what we're doing now, except they put it on like.
But like, is it live or is it pre-recorded stuff?
No, it's
so it's pre-recorded.
In game, it's pre-recorded.
Obviously, in real life, it would be live.
So it's not like some online mode where you can watch another person's match and then your face is okay.
That would be fucking sick.
Because they did that with like Super Smash Bros. Right? You can have like a live audience.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not webcammed, but I like the idea of that.
But
maybe with the lobbyist watching.
If they ever did like a tournament for 2K22,
they should find a way to do that. That would be cool.
That'd be a cool thing.
So before this game came out, Jordan, you expressed some worries about accessibility and with the button combos. So tell me what's the end product like?
I think there are some accessibility issues here. Having played about 10 hours, I do think they gate certain things. Certain moves that you can execute are gated behind combos that will just straight up not be possible for some players to do, just due to physical limitations, right? And there is no way to change away from these combos, in the sense of it has to, you can change the move that each combo executes, but the combos are what they are. So you can't actually make them simpler or anything like that. And most of the combos require 4 quite fast button presses, which just, may not seem like the biggest issue in the world to any of us, but to someone who has kind of mobility issues or issues actually executing button presses, like, for example, we've seen in QTE games where you can actually have it so that there is no timer, on a QTE based system, because they know that people struggle with pressing buttons, especially when there's a time attached to it. Like, these combos will be impossible for some people to pull off, and I think that is an accessibility issue. I think there are ways around it. I think there are what I would consider easy fixes to it, but I'm not going to be too harsh on them, because this game is still playable. Like, there's still enough.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I mean, I haven't looked at any of the combos. I've just gone with like the basic tutorial shit so far. So yes. I haven't even been playing with combos, and I've been having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So like, it's
that's
not
what
really
I was
needed.
So that's what I was just going to say, is you can still play this game. It's still playable, but there are definitely a couple of accessibility things that lock off. They're kind of locking away certain parts of the game because of not having enough accessibility there. It doesn't mean it isn't playable, and for the right people, it will be playable. I'm playing on PlayStation, so you have to basically press the circle button to lock up with somebody, right? And then you press X or square after that to execute a light or heavy move, and you can obviously add in a direction on the left stick to change what that move is. But because there's less time involved in that one, because you don't have to pull it off quite as quick, that is possible for people to do. I would say that is a little bit more accessible.
Yeah, and there's still a good range of stuff you could do within that. Because, like I said, that's all I'm doing at the minute. I don't know any of the combos other than punching a guy a couple of times. Sort of thing.
It's just that thing of, in my head though, when I consider accessibility, I'm like, why is this even here? Like, it doesn't need to be here, and if it is going to be here, then why is there not a way to make it more accessible for people who need it?
I think it's a response to the bullshit controls of the last one.
Absolutely, absolutely is.
The controls for the last one were just a fucking mess. And like, it's always going to be tricky because they want to. It's balancing.
Yeah,
trying to get as many moves as you can into like a guy's moveset sort of thing without missing out too much. But then, it gets overly complicated. It gets ridiculous. It gets, I never remember half of the shit that you could do in the last game anyway.
And also gameplay wise, it's not only that, but so in previous games, Sean, there has been a reversal limit, right? Where once you ran out of reversals, you had to wait for them to recharge. That no longer exists. But now certain moves can only be reversed by combo breakers. And this is, so they're basically making it, they're basically making it a little bit more like a fighting game. But, and it's weird because it's really changing what the gameplay is.
It's pure guesswork as well, because you don't, to actually do that, you've got to say, you've got to predict whether they're going to do a light or heavy attack.
So for example, just to explain it, you can actually reverse every move with triangle, which is the reversal button. But if someone tries to execute a combo and you don't hit that reversal on the first strike, the only way to then reverse that combo is match whatever input they are pressing. So once somebody started a combo, you can't reverse it in the traditional way. So it's kind of this thing of, they're trying to create a game that flows more. And I must say, I didn't like it at first, but as I got more used to it and I kind of realized what this system was doing, it makes it flow so well. And the main thing for me is, like any other sports game, right? They're aiming for a simulation of the product that you see on TV here. And I think this is the closest in terms of gameplay and visuals that we've ever been with a wrestling game, in terms of it actually flows like what I see on TV.
I kind of disagree. I don't think they're going for a sim at all. It feels
Really?
far more arcadey, like it used to back in the day.
Yeah.
And that is why it flows better.
Do you not think they're still trying to simulate what you see on TV, though?
I think they are, but not. That's not the point of the gameplay. They're not trying to be, pure sim. They are just trying to be fun as well. And that's why they've gone like
they've tried to find that middle ground, right? They've tried to find that middle ground between what they did do.
Yeah.
Because
the sim stuff is what made the games boring and stilted. Like now they've gone back to a more arcadey sort of thing.
But also what I mean is, I mean more about the flow aspect of the game.
But that's where the arcadey stuff comes in, because it just feels more fun to play. It's more fluid.
It absolutely does.
The sim stuff was really stilted, because you're right. Press this button, get in this position, tilt this way.
I agree.
Whereas they're doing with the new control.
But don't you think that the new controls and the way that those flow actually mean that it's a closer simulation of what we see on TV, because it flows more like what we see on TV, right? Like it doesn't slow down. It doesn't.
But
do you know what I mean?
It's not a sim in the way they've been trying to do it.
Absolutely.
It is more the arcadey flowing style of a fighting game.
Absolutely.
Which is what we've been saying for fucking ages. And they finally listened.
And that arcadey style is what I would say is it's maybe sim is the wrong word, but I would say it's more.
It's not MMA.
It's more
like
it's like, more representative of what we see on TV. Like when you see a match that, this guy kind of pulls off his finisher and the guy reverses it halfway through.
If it was like MMA or boxing,
then you go down the sim route. Yeah.
I have never seen a guy in MMA do like a 630 fucking flip off the top of a cage.
And also I've never seen a guy in wrestling go, "Oh, let's get you here and let's do this." Like they don't take 5 minutes to pull off a move. Do you know what I mean?
No, wrestling's stupid.
Flows.
Wrestling is dumb, and it should be dumb. It should be a glorified fighting game.
Absolutely.
And they're kind of somewhere in between. Yeah. Which is right where they should be, because you've got all
the actual presentation aspects needs to be as sim as it can be.
Yeah, but the gameplay needs to be arcadey to be fun.
Yeah.
Because the sim stuff is just ruined the game.
And I'll say it now. I've played about 12 hours of this game so far. I think it's the best 2K WWE game. I think
100%.
I think they've stepped it up in so many ways, and while they don't pull off everything,
they're kind of scratching the surface on what they could do with this.
Absolutely.
It feels like a massive step in the right direction.
They've put the building blocks in place. Like, I'm excited to see what, if 2K continue with making these games, and if they don't go over to EA, I'm excited to see what GM mode can be in 2 or 3 years time.
Well, not even that. I just hope they keep adding to it, even like if they do plan on releasing something next year.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
Keep adding to this. Like, they're going to add more.
The foundation is strong, before. Right? The foundation is strong.
Yeah, they're adding like another 30 wrestlers in the next couple of months, like 2-3 months.
And you know what I actually like with the DLC? We'll talk about that for a minute. I like that they're having fun with it. Like, people will
be Logan Paul in it, so I can beat the shit out of him.
Like, people will be up or down on the celebrities being in the DLC thing.
Mr. T's going to be in
it. But they're adding, to be fair though, Sean, just for some context, Mr. T has wrestled a match.
So was Trump. But,
No, Trump didn't wrestle a match.
Trump was on wrestling, but he didn't wrestle.
They should put Trump in it so I could beat the shit out of Trump. Like, Matt, put Putin in it. Like, beat the shit out of him. It's such a power fantasy.
It feels like they're having more fun with this game. That's the
Absolutely.
thing. It feels like they're actually having fun. They've created the My Faction mode, which we didn't talk about, which I will talk about a little bit now, which is basically an ultimate team mode for a WWE game, but it's completely offline single player. So,
Oh, I
so
thought it was
it's
online.
no, so it's completely.
Can you do
single
GM mode
player.
online? Because I've seen different things. I
I've-
don't know if you can.
I think they said you could, but I don't know if you can.
Yeah.
I think there was a miscommunication somewhere
Yeah.
because you can definitely do multiplayer, but I don't know if you can do it online. For
I
GM
heard
mode.
you could only do it like couch co-op, but I don't know if that's
Interesting.
true because I've seen some other places tell you how to do it online.
Interesting.
So
Interesting. Maybe we need to look into that one. But yeah, the My Faction mode is basically a card game, like an ultimate team where you get these cards, but they actually have some really interesting spins on it because you can upgrade cards through pulling off certain things in the game or having certain amounts of wins in a row, stuff like that. They've got a seasonal reward kind of system like FIFA does with Ultimate Team. I like that it's all offline and single player based because they did something previously, which was, I can't remember what they called it. I think it was like 2K Towers or something, where it was like these tower challenges. You would go through a different amount of matches and, see how far you could get and gain rewards. So they did that in a previous game. But this one kind of builds on what that was into a more Ultimate Team like game, which does have microtransactions, weirdly, but it's completely offline as far as I can tell. Like everything I've played in it is single player, and I'm playing against the AI.
I thought that was online. I thought that was what the point of that
I
was.
think a lot of people did, and I think, and this is my point, is I think the reason they have it in the game now is they're kind of trying to get people used to what this new mode is. I've played a few hours of it. I actually do quite enjoy it because you never know who you're going to go up against. You're building your deck. You've got to choose who you're going to be using in the match beforehand. As I said, you're trying to do certain challenges. It's interesting and it gives a new way to play a wrestling game. But it's just weird because it feels like it's ready-made to be a completely online mode, like an Ultimate Team. And then it's as far as I can tell, I've tried 2 of the 3 game modes within it, and they're completely single player. But there are microtransactions there. I can buy card packs with real money. I can, and it's just like, but if this is a completely offline mode, why is that a thing unless you're clearly trying to prepare people for this being an online only mode in future?
I would imagine it would be. What is the online stuff then? Because I thought that was it.
So online,
online
is just your general online where you can go online, set up match lobbies, have matches with people. It's pretty basic. They don't have a specific online mode in the way that some other sports games do.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I would say that I'm very happy with this game. I was a little bit shocked, to be honest, at how much I enjoyed playing. So far.
The gameplay and like the animations are the biggest kind of shock for me. I was not expecting them to be as fluid. And
I believe that so far this is the strongest reviewed 2K WWE game as well. So congratulations to the team on that. I think this is also a really good case for why maybe these games shouldn't be annualized and should just have
100%.
DLC updates.
Do something else in the middle. Do a weird whatever the fuck.
Absolutely.
Game. Do another car game. That was stupid.
So yeah, if you were on the fence on this one, based on my 12 hours, I would definitely recommend buying it. If after the disaster of 2K20, you were like, oh, I don't know, because this game might be terribly broken. I've basically had no bugs in this game at all.
I had one crash.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I had one. I can't remember what happened, but I can't remember for the life of me what it was, but I did something and it just failed, sort of thing. But
Well,
that that
hopefully,
could just be a loading thing.
hopefully
on
that's
PC,
also a
like, it's not
PC
necessarily-
only thing. Um,
Yeah, it could have just been something. I think it was literally just something loaded in the wrong order. I don't think it was like an issue
an
per
actual
se.
broken thing. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
no. I think it was just
Okay.
something.
Well,
didn't
that's good
load
to know.
right.
So yes, massive step up. Recommend it based on my 12 hours so far,
Mhm.
and I can't believe that I'm saying this given the last game. I actually hope that 2K do hold on to this license.
Same.
Because I'm now very hopeful for where they can go with it in the future.
And, I completely agree that this should be an every 2-year thing and just update shit. Just update stuff. Give us costumes. Make it your destiny. Everyone wants a live service game. This is the only game I'm advocating for a fucking live service, and you won't give it to me.
Absolutely. Sean, before we finish up here, have you played anything else?
Afraid not. I am now back on to Horizon, which we'll discuss in more detail. But long story short, I'm really, really, really enjoying it. I think it's awesome.
Good.
Did we have a question to answer?
I'm
pretty sure you asked the question.
Yes, we did. Let me just figure it out a second.
Because there have been a couple, and we haven't all been here together to answer the question.
I know what it was. The last, because we missed an episode last week. So the last question was actually about reviews, because remember we were talking about reviews, Luke?
Mm-hmm.
And the question went something along the lines of, do reviews in progress have a place, and should they actually replace the traditional full day one review, in terms of, should a pre-release or day one review always have to be called a review in progress?
If they're always going to be a review in progress, I feel like you can just not call it review in progress anymore, because that's just what they are.
Yeah,
just call it a review.
True. That's true.
I think, didn't you always say something about having to follow up with another review as well?
Yeah,
like a final thoughts sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like a month later.
So the other question was, should at least the big releases, the big AAA boys, should they all have some sort of thing where it's like, after a month or 2 months, we have to, at least on a technical level, have another look at this game.
I feel like that only will occur with the ones that come out in a terrible state like Cyberpunk.
Absolutely. So there you have it. Pretty short episode this week. Obviously, Sean was zooming us around that track in GT7, and we got through that one quickly. So yeah, we are on both channels this week, as we said, as a reminder.
Yes,
you will see us on the Eat Sleep Game channel. This is the final episode, in theory, on the Game for All YouTube channel. If you're an audio listener, you will still find us in the same place, so just stay there.
Yep.
It's not going to move, but go and subscribe to Eat Sleep Game, because that's where we're going to live now. I'm sure that we're going to get more content over there on Luke's channel with his reviews, and maybe some of my reviews. Yeah. And also, just to say to people, don't worry, nothing's if you're a fan of Eat Sleep Game, nothing is going to change on Eat Sleep Game. You're just going to get more videos there.
It'll be like a year ago when I had a podcast.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So follow us at G4A Network now on Twitter. Obviously, follow Eat Sleep Game on Twitter as well, because that is now our new home. And we will see you next time, where we should have a very special guest. Goodbye.